Let's move that out of the way. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me this afternoon. My name's Tom Howie. I'm from Evessio. I'm the COO of Evessio. Can everybody hear me okay? Is that all right? Okay. We've got some feedback on the mic. So when the Event Tech Live guys and girls reached out to me and said, we'd like to give you 10 minutes to come up on stage, and we'd like you to talk about Evessio and everything it does and why it's great, I thought, awesome. But I kind of also figured that if you really wanted to know what we would do, you'd come and find us on stand 4. So what I want to do today is sort of use this time to talk about something that I think is going to be changing the way we run events in the next few years. And the reason I think that we're due for a change and a big evolution is because of where I've come from. So I've come from the world of information technology. I'm not an events person, I'm a tech guy. And over the last few years, I've seen quite a few shifts in how technologies are being adopted in industry that I can see coming towards us. So what I want to do is give you just a couple minutes on what's been going on with us IT folk over the last few years to set up why I think things are going to be changing coming forward. So 10 years ago, and I know it's a long time, we had a massive focus on something called data center consolidation and virtualization. Now don't worry, I'm not going to go into this, I'm not going to sort of bore you with what all that was about, but just know it was a thing, and know that we spent a lot of time doing something called data center consolidation and virtualization. Simply put, we were removing servers out of data centers. And with that, and being able to understand that, we started doing a tremendous amount of monitoring. And us IT people wanted data. We wanted lots of data. We couldn't get enough data. And then roll the clock forward, literally just to 5 years ago, our attention shifted. It has shifted towards applications. And there was a big transformation that was going on that enabled us to focus on this. Simply put, it was the transition of Windows XP and that ceasing as we embraced technologies like Windows 7. I'm sure a lot of you went through this and saw some of this. And as part of that, you had the likes of Microsoft talking about the applications. You must understand your applications in order to move them from one location to the other. So us IT folk were like, let's monitor those, let's understand them, give us data, give us lots and lots of data. But today, our data centers are all sorted, our applications are all sorted, and we're never going to see that type of transformation again. We're never going to see that type of transformation again because companies like Microsoft find it too risky. When they need you to move from one platform to another, it gives other companies the opportunity to steal their business, like Apple. I moved from Microsoft to Apple through this transformation myself, so I'm speaking firsthand. So the attention for us IT people shifted from the app to something new, you guys. It's all about monitoring you and understanding what you do. So what's this fuss about and why are people looking to do this? Because if a server fell over, it affected 100 people or 1,000 people. An application serves many people. But the world in which we live in, the world in which we work in has changed. We now use multiple devices, right? You don't just have one device, you have your personal device, your work device, and you're probably leveraging this to do the work that you do. So it's the ability, and what IT is now looking to do is understand you as individuals. It's called your persona, how you interact with IT. And the fuss, and what we're trying to capture, is when you log on to your systems, what are the different devices you are leveraging? And what are the different applications that you're leveraging on those different devices? And we're doing this not to be Big Brother, but companies are doing this to understand you as individuals so they can serve you better. They understand how you work, what you do, and therefore what resources you need to do your job. Now, the interesting thing for me is that this type of technology has hit a point in history that's a tipping. 3 years ago, the likes of Gartner, who are the big analysts in the world, wouldn't have given this any time of day. But right now today, they're talking about this as being the fastest growth of adoption and investment over the next 3 years. We have seen that 5% of companies and industries are now spending money to understand this, with an adoption rate soon to hit about 30%. And they are doing this to make business decisions. And there's a wonderful man who wrote a book called Geoffrey Moore, and it's all about the types of people and when they buy products. You see, Geoffrey Moore talked about innovators, followed by early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. Now, your innovators are those of you that will spend the night sleeping on the street to be the first people into the Apple Store to get the latest and greatest iPhone. On the other hand, you've got laggards. Laggards is like my dear mother, who has a smart device, but she keeps it in her car, and it's for emergencies only, and she's very happy with her landline. But the point is that we're seeing quite a shift, and it's the understanding of your users and understanding of the personas that is coming to be mainstream. And it's kind of obvious now. It's kind of obvious that if companies are investing in this to understand this, then they're going to be wanting to know it for our events. If we can understand through the use of technology everything about you and how you work and how you operate, it's only natural that we're going to want the same thing for those that are attending our events. But it takes time. To understand you as individuals, IT recognizes that might take a year because you work at different months. You work different applications at different times. Your job is not static. So it takes time. And if we think about how a lot of us run events today, we jump from one event to the next, to that event to the next. It's fast-paced, it's immensely stressful, and it's immensely busy. But how many of us are now leveraging technologies to help guide us for the future? How many of us are leveraging technologies to really understand our user, to help us be proactive in the future? The monitoring goes from a cycle. You monitor. When you become monitoring, you can then react. When you can understand, then you can start to proactively sort of assist. So as I walk around, and what we were talking around 10 years ago in IT was all about data, data's starting to come into our world of events. Companies and customers that I'm talking to are all about, oh, we must talk about data, we must understand data. But collecting data is costly, and you've got to be careful, because too much data is really hard to understand. If I said, here's 1 million bits of information about your customer, you stand back and go, whoa. In the world of IT, actually, data is not a good thing. We don't like data anymore. We used to be big fans of it, but we're not anymore. Why? Because something came along called big data. Big data is so much data, we couldn't understand it. And then we needed machines to help us make sense of what we've got. So as I sort of wrap this up, what I want to try and get across is those people that can leverage technologies and can see technologies to help them over the next coming years will be in a much better place than those that don't. But when we talk about data, what I want you guys to do is think about how that data is going to be of value to you. Because we don't want data, we want value, we want information. And how do we get that? We get that by putting data into context which gives you value, gives you information. So I was only ever given a very short sort of moment of time, but I wanted to share with you this component that I see is where things are changing. So I've got a couple minutes, which is perfect, so we can open up for any questions, if there are any.
So the questions will come up right
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us more about long data? So that's a question of how long it takes to collect data, I assume. Can I find out who asked the question? Thank you. So is it about understanding how long you need to understand data?
About using data and experience over the long term. So big data, as you said, has overwhelmed people. And I think long data is now about collecting information and using it and passing it on and on and on.
That's right. So what companies are doing is they're taking data and they understand that to understand an individual user might take them a year. We can understand data very quickly, but if a team is off for 2 weeks, then we're not going to understand that user. So we've got month ends, we've got quarter ends, we've got year ends. So as industry is adopting this, it's about the perpetual motion of analyzing and understanding users. If we can understand how they work throughout the year, we can better serve them. When it comes to events, we need to understand how our users are going to go through that journey with you through that event. Once we can understand how they go through that journey, then we can start making proactive decisions as to how to better serve them. What interests them, when they spend money with us, where they spend money with us, what they're interested in, what sessions are they attending, where are they attending, because that enables us as guys and girls that are running events just to provide value. And once we can start to do that, and the bigger the companies that I'm sort of working with are starting to think about 3-5 year plans as to how they're going to take those customers on the journey, because that fundamentally helps them in the vision where they want to take their events. Do they want to take their events abroad? Do they want to grow their events? Do they just want to sustain them? Or do they want to branch off and diversify into other events? Does that make sense? Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, any other questions? So I was only ever given a very short amount of time, but I hope this was more useful than just, say, a standard pitch. But any of you that like to know more about where this is going and what we're doing, we're on stand 4, and I'd love to have a conversation with all of you. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you coming here this afternoon. Thank you.